Right, okay. So we're aware that Councillor Nicholl is obviously absent from today's meeting. So I have Councillor McClellan in attendance today.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Radley.
Present.
Councillor Ewell is obviously sent his apologies as well, and we have Councillor MacDonald. I'm hoping Councillor MacDonald has joined us since I last looked up. I'll continue to try and get a hold of Councillor MacDonald because I know that she is attending. It's just in case she's having issues, but I'll carry on with the roll call just now. So Councillor Finlater is sent his apologies as well, and we have Councillor John Cox. Is he here today?
I am. Good morning.
Thank you. Councillor Petrie.
Good morning, I'm here.
Councillor Stirling is obviously chairing today.
Present, yes.
So we've got an apology for Professor George Boyne. I'm not sure if we've got a substitute. I can see Mr. Morris. No, we've no substitute. Okay.
Sorry,
Thank
is
you.
Stanley Morris here? Stanley was travelling, so I didn't think he could attend. So I don't think we have a substitute.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Jennifer, you're obviously in attendance, and Sir Wood. Thank you. I'll now hand back to the chair.
Thank you very much indeed. And again, a warm welcome to you all. There's been no urgent business notified, so therefore we do not have any business to consider in addition to the agenda. There's no exempt papers on the agenda today, so all the discussions will be held in public. And can I ask now, please, if members have any declarations of interest or transparency statements to make? Sir Ian? You're on mute, sir. Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
Sorry, guys.
No, that's okay. Thank you.
Thank goodness I've got a highly efficient PA who can keep me right. Sorry, so what I was saying was that the minutes of the last meeting satisfactorily covered declaration of interest transparency statements from myself, Jennifer Craw and George Boyne, and I think it's exactly the same declaration to be made as far as we're concerned.
Okay, thank you. So we'll just transfer that statement into the minute for today that covers both yourself and Jennifer.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. So the next item on our agenda is the minute of the previous meeting of the 18th of November 2022, and it's here for approval. So that is in your pack from pages 3 to 8. Can we agree that that's a correct note of the meeting in the first instance? See some nods, so I don't hear anything to the contrary, so that has been approved as a correct note of the meeting. As a matter arising, I think it was resolved that there'd be a circulation from Paul Finch with regard to the key activities for the rail improvement projects, and that has been circulated on the 21st of December 2022. So with that, can we then agree that that has been concluded? So the minute's been approved. Okay, thank you very much. Item 6 on our agenda then is the City Region Deal quarterly progress update, and that sits in pages 9 to 38 in your pack. Richard, can you introduce this, please, and then we'll hear from the officers with the individual updates. Thank you. You're on mute too.
My apologies, committee.
Good morning.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning. Yes, this is just the regular update that the committee gets on the overall progress to the programme. But today we will have Paul McCarry giving a verbal update on digital and Mr. Mackay on the roads projects. And then in terms of after those updates, if I suggest if there's any questions on the programme officers will respond as relevant. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So, Mr. Macari, would you like to give us the update on digital, please?
Yep, thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. You'll recall in November, the business case that was presented to Joint Committee, amongst other recommendations, outlined the urgent requirement to maximise fibre opportunities at pace in the areas of our region that had been identified with very low or no digital connectivity. The instruction from Joint Committee was to investigate further the different financial models that could be put in place to achieve the outcome of increased and accelerated investment in fibre connectivity within the region. We continue to discuss with the Scottish Government at ministerial level and also within local government regarding the different financial levers available to us, and equally how to overcome some of the challenges in terms of how we can utilise the funds. So whether it be a loans option, a grants option, but effectively ensuring that if any use of the funds that remain within the digital envelope is effectively how we can use them in the most effective way, and equally how we can do so in alignment with the terms and conditions of the funding as granted by the governments. As well as carrying out that piece of work, we've also been meeting regularly with Building Digital UK's Project Gigabit team and the Scottish Government to discuss how Project Gigabit will be rolled out within Aberdeenshire and Aberdeen City. To give a wee bit of background, Project Gigabit is a £5 billion UK government initiative which aims to extend the reach of gigabit broadband into hard-to-reach communities. You'll recall that the Aberdeen City is a gigabit city, the first in the country, and that was delivered through the City Region Deal programme. Effectively, Project Gigabit will target premises currently unable to access gigabit speeds and are not currently included in broadband suppliers' delivery plans. So effectively, it takes into account all the areas within our region that aren't yet connected digitally, and equally those who are unable to achieve gigabit speed broadband. It's anticipated that Project Gigabit procurements in Scotland will be developed jointly by the UK and Scottish governments, and we hope that in the summer to autumn period this year, the first tenders will be issued by the governments. It's important to note that such procurements will be additional complementary to any coverage provided by the R100 contracts that are still being rolled out by the government and would not require City Deal funding. So in essence, if Project Gigabit is rolled out in the northeast Scotland in 2023-2024, that will be funded using the £5 billion allocated by the government to that project, and as such the £4 million that remains in City Region Deal funding within the digital envelope will remain available to spend on, I suppose, digital innovation across the region, and recognising that it would be prudent right now, and obviously in terms of financial common sense, for us not to progress too far with spending the £4 million on digital connectivity if it's going to be superseded by the rollout of Project Gigabit over the next 12 to 18 months in the northeast of Scotland. Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to answer any questions on that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Macari. Do members have any questions based on that update? I see no indications. No, so no questions. So thank you very much indeed for taking that forward and for the progress that's been made. And that's very, very welcome. So thank you for that. Richard, do you wish to come back in?
No, not on
No.
that paper.
Okay,
And I think
okay, thank
the
you.
next update is from Mr. Mackay.
Yes, thank you very much. I saw you coming onto the screen. I wondered if you wanted to contribute. So no, it's fine. Mr. Mackay, you're with us to give us an update, please, on the roads. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning. So update from last time on the external links to Aberdeen South Harbour. Since the last update, works have been progressing on DMRB Stage 2. In particular, topographical surveys of the corridor have been undertaken and are practically complete. They were impacted slightly by the poor weather in December, but not that will affect the programme. That's included standard surveying and a laser survey of the railway. In addition to that, work has progressed substantially on the contract for site investigation, which is part of the accelerated programme, and the intention is that that will go out to procurement this month. Also part of the accelerated programme, the ecological surveys over the corridor have commenced as well. In undertaking both the topographical and ecological surveys requires access to the land, which is not necessarily within the control of the authority. I can report back at the moment we have had no issues taking access to any land, which has been good and encouraging. Further to that, options for the alignment itself are well developed, and there have been a number of interactions between ourselves and the consultant on the nature of those alignments and others. The traffic modelling work required is well underway also to update the modelling base models that will lead into outputs for the business case, and the walking, cycling and horse riding assessment required for this stage is being established, and the contact is being made with consultees as part of that process. In terms of key stakeholder engagement, regular meetings are now well established with Port of Aberdeen and ETZ, and liaising on a frequent basis with them around their plans and ambitions for utilising the infrastructure and nearby it, including trying to resolve and set what the abnormal load requirement may be for the route. Also, engagement with Network Rail is underway around the protection of existing assets and how the new infrastructure will be implemented going forward. And also a key stakeholder with Scottish Water, due to their apparatus in the near vicinity of the route. Meetings have been held with them, and we're getting good engagement now. So overall, we remain on programme to deliver the next key milestone, which from the report is the completion of Stage 2 in April. So that's the update for today. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mackay. Please, members, do you have any questions for Mr. Mackay? Miranda, Councillor Radley, sorry.
Thank you. Miranda's fine. Mr. Mackay, where I'm not sure how the makeup of the land is around where the road is, but where there's a landowner that's not the council, has there been sort of preliminary talks with them about the siting of the road and what's needed engagement-wise with them?
Yeah, so what's happened thus far is investigations into title and ownership. Most of those are resolved, although there is a small list of items that are still being worked on by legal teams. All of the landowners that that are along the corridor have been contacted through the access that I mentioned earlier for some of the survey work. Beyond that, no active discussions in terms of their desire or otherwise to sell at this stage. That will follow in the later this year once the route is more established.
Okay, Councillor Radley, do you want to come back?
No, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Serene, please.
In terms of risks, so that was a helpful update. Is there any significant change in the risks facing us? Or are you still pretty confident that not just that we're on course, but actually we don't have any new risks ahead of us?
Yeah, so happy to answer that. No new additional significant risks have been identified to the programme at this stage. So we continue to work on the mitigations to those that have been highlighted before, but nothing additional that's causing us a concern.
Thank you.
Serene, would you like to come back?
No, that's fine.
Nope.
I hope we keep getting these kind of reports.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other indications. One last call. No other indications for any questions for Mr. Mackay, and thank you very much indeed for that update, and we look forward to hearing about further progress in due course. So thank you for that. Do members have any other questions based on the report, agenda item 6? Any other questions at all from the papers that are before us today? I see no indications. Can I ask then, please, Mrs. Beattie, who's on the call, in terms of finance and the table on page 13, there's an underspend indicated. Does that underspend roll forward, or can you update us on how that would progress, please?
Yes, thanks, Chair, and a very good question. So as the committee will be aware, we have regular meetings with the Scottish Government finance colleagues and keep them appraised of the financial position, and they are aware of our asks next year. So next week we have to submit our biannual forecast to them, and that lays out our funding requirements for the next year. And following that submission, we'll hopefully receive our grant offer letter. And whilst I have no reason to believe that we won't receive the funding carried forward, at this moment, I can't categorically confirm the amount until I actually get the grant letter in. But to give the assurance, or as much assurance as I can to committee, I haven't had any indications that we won't receive it, and I would have expected that from colleagues. So hope that helps, Chair.
Thank you very much. And what's the timescale for you having confirmation or getting confirmation from the government that that would be the case?
I would hope that I would get that within a couple of weeks, Chair.
Okay,
But,
thank you.
But I can pursue.
Is that something that you could keep the joint committee appraised of, please, if there are any issues? Because I think it would be unfortunate if that was not to roll forward as part of your grant.
Yes,
so thank you very much indeed for that. Thank you. That's a very helpful update. Any other questions at all? One last call. No. So the recommendations then sit on page 9. We're being asked to note the content of the programme update and projects update at Appendix A, and to note the updated integrated impact assessment 3.1.4 and an Appendix B. Can we agree those, please? And I'll take silence as an agreement. That's fine. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you to all the officers who are continuing to progress the work streams, and for all the work that you're doing on behalf of the City Region deal. So thank you. Item 7 on our agenda is the City Region deal benefits realisation plan, and that sits on page 39 to 114. And I think Richard, are you introducing this for us, please? Thank you.
I will, Chair, and then we'll hand over to questions. We thought it'd be useful just to give a bit of context to this paper and the benefits realisation plan. When the Aberdeen City Region deal was being developed and negotiated with two governments back in 2015, 2016, the statement of intent provided the governments with an ex-ante economic appraisal of the benefits. And the main measurements used were jobs and gross value added, the relative wealth as a result, accrued as a result of the deal. So all business cases for the programme and projects, and indeed immediate implementation, were prepared on that basis. As the deal proceeded, and in subsequent reporting, we would record progress annually in the annual reports to both governments. However, at the same time, there was a number of new emerging policy areas that were being developed, and the outcome and the objectives of these were being applied to subsequently negotiated either city and/or growth deals. And the emerging policy areas were around just transition, net zero, well-being, and inclusion. And during our annual reporting, we were always being asked to what extent we could report the contribution of the Aberdeen City Region deal to these emerging areas, all of which are now encompassed in the National Strategy for Economic Transformation. And so over the last year or so, where appropriate and relevant, we've been aligning some of our reporting back to the national strategy and these objectives. So the benefits realisation report you have in front of you today, it's a requirement of both governments, and it seeks to broaden the measurement of the contribution of the Aberdeen City Region deal to these new KPIs. The work has been undertaken by consultants across members of the programme board, including ourselves as officers. The projects have been consulted on, and Scottish Enterprise too have contributed. And I should conclude by saying that a couple of things. This benefits realisation plan will be applicable to other external funding that is being used. For example, Just Transition Fund, there's a suite of measures in there that could be used by projects there to help monitoring. Shared Prosperity Fund, Energy Transition Fund, or indeed some of the emerging investments, some of the investments in the emerging regional economic strategy. But ultimately, the benefits realisation plan will be used to inform a final evaluation of the Aberdeen City Region Deal programme. So I conclude there with the preface or the context, but officers are available to answer any questions you have. And Mr. Coventry was the lead officer in terms of the plan and the report you have in front of you today. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much indeed for that comprehensive overview. I'll just invite Mr. Coventry. Do you want to add anything to that, or are you happy to take questions?
No, I'm happy with that, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. So, members, can I ask you to indicate if you have any questions or comments, please? Serene?
Yeah, I was quite surprised. First of all, it's an incredibly long report, but I guess that's part of the process of what we're going through in terms of the way the government works and the civil service works. I found it incredibly long. Secondly, it doesn't give the impression that of the huge strength of oil and gas in the northeast of Scotland over a long period of time. It doesn't really say an awful lot about the change to the new energies, and that's a big issue in terms of the new energies, and there's an awful lot of work and potential there. Yeah, I'm just reading my notes here. Page 71 talks about us potentially declining rate of innovations and lacking infrastructure to support spin-outs. I would have thought Aberdeen is just as enterprising as it has ever been, and will be more enterprising with the broadening of the energy requirements. The report quite rightly talks about the other industries, and the fact there's a lot of potential there. ETZ is hardly mentioned. and again, from the oil and gas point of view, and the new energy point of view, that's going to be a really important part of what's happening. I don't think there's any reason to believe we further deterioration in the UK relations to fishing. And actually, I don't agree with the comments on fishing. The suggestion in fishing is that no real significant market reduction. Too much made of the Northern Ireland Protocol. I don't think fishing is on the way down. I think over the next 3 or 4 years we'll get some more stocks, and the fishing will be, fish catching will be in better shape. So it just seemed to me a pretty negative report, and doesn't really highlight the key issues, the key potential issues in terms of growth.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll invite Mr. Sweetman, please, Richard.
Yes, I'm happy to maybe comment on the comments. As an evaluation plan, it's very specific on how we are measuring the contribution of the projects in the city region deal towards the aforementioned policy objectives, and those measures will be across the inputs, i.e. the financial contributions, the activities delivered by those inputs, and the immediate outputs, and then ultimately outcomes and the impact of the whole deal. So the commentary preceding those frameworks and KPIs is in no way a strategy or a plan for the regional economy. It was setting the scene for the evaluation framework for the city region deal in terms of where it has been coming from, as I said earlier, since 2016 to where we are today, ultimately predicting to the end of the programme. So the comments are noted, but I would just remind committee that the purpose of this report is very much in terms of what is the impact of the projects that have been funded through the city region deal.
Serene, would you like to come back?
Well, I would have thought, yeah, I understand that. I would have thought there's some real value in terms of looking ahead and taking account of, because there's been a step change in Aberdeen, or in the process of that, in the last 2 or 3 years with the big offshore wind potential and with hydrogen in other areas. I just kind of wonder about the wisdom of simply looking and appraising what's been done in the past. There's a whole lot of new potential activities there.
So, but is the requirement to report to both governments, Richard? Does this meet that criteria? I think that's.
So the answer to that question is yes. This has been developed with the civil servants, with the officials in both governments. But just picking up on Serene's last point there, one would anticipate that the monitoring and evaluation of, for example, the Net Zero Technology Centre is going to inevitably pick up a lot on the environmental and the net zero policy objectives and outcomes being delivered there, obviously around innovation. And in terms of forward looking and you know what's next, collectively partners and stakeholders have been working on a new regional economic strategy that sets the direction to capitalise on those very projects around offshore wind, ScotWind and Intog and so forth as well. So that's a separate bit of work, but an important one in the context of the future.
Serene, would you like to come back?
Well, I look forward to hearing the progress on the one you're now working on, Richard, because there is, I mean, Aberdeen is not the same place it was 2 or 3 years ago. Frankly, my biggest worry 3 or 4 years ago was that when oil and gas winds down, we'd be in real trouble. We've now got some significant alternative opportunities. So if the procedure is that all that you've done is looked and appraised on what's happened with the money we've got, then okay. I would much rather we were looking ahead.
Okay, thank you for that. And I think that point is noted, and I think there are potentially some significant proposals coming forward in Aberdeenshire as well for future provision. So I think, you know, across the region we've got some opportunities emerging, but based on the conversation that we've just had, I wonder, Richard, if it's an appropriate time based on this benefits realisation report to perhaps have a look at our KPIs as a joint committee, and to revisit and be assured that the business models that are in place are sustainable, and that actually we're planning for that future. Springs to mind, I suppose, Seed Pod and BioHub. Again, it might just be an opportunity for the joint committee just to check in, based on this report, to use this as the base and to pick up Serene's point about future proofing and about how we're going to go forward, and have we got the right KPIs in place based on the innovations that have happened. Do we want to review any of that? It may be that there's no change required, but I wonder if joint committee members would be minded to ask officers to come forward with those updates. I see some nods. Anybody, any comments, Serene?
No, I've
No,
made my
okay,
I've made
okay.
I've made my comment.
Okay.
I'm going to
Thank
guess we
you.
spent a lot of money on the report, and it's a question of getting some benefit from that.
Well, I think that's a fair point. I'll take Jennifer and then Richard. Thank you.
So I think the advantage of having worked through the benefits realisation plan, and it has actually been quite a detailed and intensive period for all of the teams, because the ask of a lot of detail is huge, and we've been trying to rationalise what's meaningful in terms of understanding both the impact of the projects that we have had City Region Deal investment in, and equally how that impact will then be demonstrated to both governments for future funding, because these projects are long-term projects. So the question about sustainability, Chair, I think is a really important one. These projects have a requirement for ongoing public sector funding in terms of sustainability, in terms of being ahead, in terms of innovation. The specific model we looked at when we were developing the business case for each of the innovation projects was the Catapult model, which is Innovate UK funded, which has a long-term requirement and those projects are of a greater age and length of experience than our City Region Deal innovation projects, where they have had ongoing Innovate UK and government support matched by private sector support, matched by private sector projects flowing through the infrastructure that's created. So I think it's a really good question. We have put a lot of effort in to review and give perhaps more clarity per project, what we're seeking to measure in terms of impact in the short, medium and then longer term, and actually how we use the impact we believe we've achieved to date in terms of being able to make the case for future funding for each of the innovation projects. I think if I put on my project lead hat, and working in the programme board, as well as being a part of joint committee, I think that's the huge value in undertaking this activity. It's to demonstrate impact and demonstrate the opportunity for further investment and future impact in terms of those innovation infrastructure investments made through the City Region Deal. And actually, we've already seen across each of them securing further public sector capital funding and private sector funding. So I think that does demonstrate good success of the model.
Yep, thank you, Jennifer. Thank you very much, Richard.
Yes, and just, Chair, in answer to your question, the committee gets regular updates on progress, on a quarterly basis, and I think you'll see the next annual report will employ some of these new and emerging KPIs as guided by government, and as I said, this is a requirement of both governments for assessing the impact of the City Region Deal programme. Inevitably, there will be questions and challenges that are an important part of the future, and the Joint Committee will undoubtedly pick them up. But just to reassure the Joint Committee that these are also a big part of what our regional economic strategy should be focused on in the next 5 to 10 years as well.
Yeah, thank you for that assurance, Richard. But I would just ask officers to take off table and discuss how best we can get that assurance to pick up the points Serena's made, to reflect what Jennifer has said, as well as yourselves. I appreciate we get the updates, but I think we should check in and just make sure that we're still on the right track, and that we are capturing all the different areas that we need to, in terms of that sustainable model, the business models, how are they going to work, etc. So I'll leave that with officers if that's okay. Councillor Petrie, please.
Yeah, just to come in, I think, Chair, and I agree with you on this. I think it's maybe just that we do something slightly different in how we report in Aberdeenshire Council, and so we see very visual updates, and we do get updates, but they're almost, it's hard to measure off them how far along the project are or how much we've got to do, and we don't see them like beside each other either. So we can't say, this project is this far along and this one's slightly further behind. And I think if we had those KPIs and it was just produced slightly differently, then it might be easier for us to get that bigger picture of where we are with some of the projects. I think that's where I struggle, is that we get updates and they're grand, but I don't think we're getting the full what's still to come, etc. Or so there's a dread to bring it up, but the housing money, that just kind of goes off the table for a few meetings and we don't hear about it. If we could have all the KPIs in front of us, then we would know. I know we've probably not moved any further forward with it, but it's that kind of information I think it would be good to see in the whole that we're maybe missing here to keep us on track.
It might be worth just asking officers to bring forward just a protected time, a wee session, just to look at all of that, Gwyneth, in the round. I think that's helpful. And yeah, you've raised the issue of housing, and that is a real concern that we're not getting any traction on that, but perhaps we'll revisit that. Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any other indications. So there are some actions that we've asked officers to consider and come back to Joint Committee as appropriate. So thank you very much for that. The recommendation on page 39 is asking Joint Committee to endorse the report before us. Are we agreed we can endorse the report? See nods. Okay, thank you very much. So item 8 on our agenda is the Net Zero Technology Centre video presentations. And just before I go on to that, I would like to make mention, and I was fortunate enough to attend the opening in January of the National Subsea Centre. And I think it's worthy of note here today. It's a project that's been supported by this City Region deal. And I'm not sure if others that are on the call attended, but I have to say it was a very impressive demonstration of the potential of that centre. And I think it's if folks have not had the opportunity to go along, I would encourage you to do so, because it really is particularly impressive. So thanks to everyone who've worked so hard to get that on the ground. It really was an excellent visit. Okay, so we'll go back then to item 8, the Net Zero Technology Centre and video presentations. And I'm delighted to welcome Nicola McIntosh and Rebecca Allison. And I think we'll just hand over to you now and ask you to present to the committee. Thank you.
So thank you for inviting us along. We're delighted to show you some technology, and I have brought Rebecca Allison with me, who is going to take you through some videos and a short presentation and discussion. So please ask questions, and we look forward to sharing what we're up to.
Thank you, everyone. I will just share my screen. And like Nicola has said, welcome any questions or any feedback. So our work that we've done to date has been focused very much on the deployment and development of technology in the region, and I've got 3 companies to showcase today, all with different journeys, and these are just a sample of the projects that we are working on. Excuse me. So Interblock are a local company who were originally through the Grey Matters programme, and then through our TechX accelerator programme, and then through the Solution Centre, and now a fully commercialised technology and company in the Aberdeen city, who have now employed over 5 people and have just secured a large contract and investment from, again, a local operator. FlyLogix is a different type of company. This is a company working with a lot of the oil and gas companies, measuring and monitoring their methane emissions, so very much supporting the energy transition. And they're a beyond visual line of sight drone company who are now looking at opening an service base in Peterhead region to support the offshore flight industry. And Motion, again, as part of our transition through the TechX Accelerator Programme, are a tidal energy company, again promoting, and have now opened an office in Aberdeen and have employed over 40 people. So very much in the technology region as well as the jobs and infrastructure of the local region. So I'll go through the videos, and likewise, if you've got any questions, please, I'll be happy to answer. Just realised I'm moving on to FlyLogix. And moving on to our last video with motion. So 3 technologies, all doing 3 different journeys, and just an example of some of the work that we're doing here at the NZTC.
Thank you very much indeed, Rebecca and Nicola, for that introduction and the videos. I think exceptional innovation. So members, do you have any questions for either Rebecca or Nicola? Any comments? I see no indications. So again, just more examples of creativity and innovation in the Northeast and through the Net Zero Technology Centre. So again, some demonstration of the benefit that centre is having for industry across the region and beyond. I think it's difficult to capture, but you know, if you could capture the benefit globally that these small companies can add would be very interesting. But thank you very much indeed for bringing us those videos, and it's great to see in action the work that you do. So thank you for that. Any final comments or observations? No? Well, again, thank you both very much indeed, and can you pass our thanks to the companies who have contributed to the meeting today? It's been appreciated. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, colleagues, that brings us to the end of the agenda. So that would be an opportunity to thank everyone for their participation and contribution today, and for the press and public, we're now closing the meeting. So thank you to all the officers who have presented papers and who have contributed. Again, it's appreciated, and thank you members for your attendance. Thank you, Mark. Does that now conclude business?
Yes, it does. Okay. Thanks very much.
No, thank you very much. So the recording will be stopped.
A vote of thanks to the chair.
Oh, thank you very much, Councillor
Thank you,
Cox.
Chair.
Thank you very much, and have a good weekend, everyone.